Okay. Tonight, I'm going to make a confession. I might regret it. This might be a mistake. Merci. But I'm going to make a confession. Maybe there's students here or colleagues of mine who will never look at me in the same way again after this. But feck it. But before I do, let me insist and tell you that I love my job. I really do. I have the best job in the world. I get to read, I get to write, I get to talk all day if I want. I get to work with young people. I get to prepare presentations about cutting edge news, business news, world news. And I get to work with these young people, enthusiastic people. I get to meet entrepreneurs. I get to travel the world. I go to conferences. And at these conferences, I meet other people who get to read and write and surf the net and talk all day if they want. And they also work with young people. And I get paid for this. So I really, 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 really love my job. But sometimes I'm sitting in the back of a taxi, or I'm sitting beside someone on a plane, or I'm at my son's parent-teacher meeting, and I'm chatting with somebody, and they turn and they ask me, "What do you do?" And I don't tell them. Well, I half tell them. I tell them I'm a teacher, un professeur. Comment on dit en français? And when we get past the fact that, yes, English, I speak English, I teach in France, in a business school. No, I don't teach English. I teach something else. Oh, what do you teach? Organisational behaviour. Organisational, quoi? Organisational behaviour. Comportement organisationnel. You know, kind of like psychology, anthropology, sociology, but in the workplace. That's what I teach. So that's what I tell them. And to be honest, it's not just random strangers, actually. Even our childminder, the person that I entrust with my 2 children, doesn't know my full job. She thinks just I teach, which would explain the talking and the writing and the reading maybe, but not the travelling the world, meeting entrepreneurs. So I don't tell the full story. I don't tell people what I do, because I'm not just a teacher or a professor. I'm also a researcher. And what do I do research on? I do research on gender. So, I'm an organisational prof. I do research on gender. What does a researcher who's interested in gender, what do I look at? What am I interested in? So I look at people in organisations. I look at entrepreneurs. I look at people in family business. And I look at how gender influences what they want to do, what they think they can do, what they do and what they don't do, how they behave. But I also look at what other people think about what they can do and what they don't do, and what is expected of them and not expected of them. Because gender is like a script. It's like we're playing a role in a play, and we have a script, and there's certain words that we, and sentences and lines that we are allowed use because of our gender. And it's out there, it's up there, and we have access to it. So I'm a researcher on gender. And I don't tell people that that's what I do. But I'm really passionate about this. I really am. When I talk about gender issues, when I talk about equality, when I talk about these things, I get animated. I talk louder. I move my hands. My heart beats faster. I am really passionate about gender and doing research on gender. So why then? Why don't I tell people what I do? Well, let's go back a bit. So it's 1986, and I'm 6 or 7. And my dad comes home, and he says to me and my 2 sisters, here we are. He says to me in the middle. I'm the only blondie one. So my dad comes home and says, there's a great film, great movie on the TV tonight that we're going to watch. Now, I don't know if this film made its way across the water to France or not, but it's a film called Educating Rita. And it's a story of Rita, a 26-year-old hairdresser from Liverpool, who decides she wants to go back, well, she wants to educate herself. She wants to, not to go back, she actually wants to learn. She wants to go to university. And she wants to study literature. So Rita, from a working class background, wants to go and study literature. And she does. And it's also the story of Frank, her professor, a little disillusioned, but he becomes her mentor. And Rita becomes one of his most brilliant students. And Rita goes from knowing zero about literature to being an expert on the classics, Shakespeare, Chekhov. She reads them all. She starts listening to classical music. She now knows what good wine is. She goes to the theatre. Rita emerges and changes from being somebody who was earning a very low wage to suddenly somebody who had this great potential ahead of her and felt empowered and had more choices. And she left her husband, she left her hometown. And Rita's education had opened up a whole new world for her. And this film, this movie, I really loved it. I really loved it, even though I was probably too young to watch it. I really loved this film. And 2 months later, a couple of months later, I'm in town with my mother. I'm Irish, so town was Dublin City. I don't know if any of you know Dublin City. Beautiful, fantastic place. And right in the middle of Dublin city centre is Trinity College. This beautiful, majestic, Victorian building. Huge building right in the centre of Dublin City. Now, neither of my parents went and studied third level. Neither of them have an university education. In fact, similar to a large majority of their generation in North Dublin at the time, they did not finish secondary level education. But that day, we walked by Trinity College, Dublin. And we walked by this massive, majestic building. And I turned to my mother and I said, I'm going there. And I did. I did go there. And I did graduate in front of the same building that Rita actually graduated in front of, because Educating Rita, which I later found out, had actually been filmed in Trinity College instead of Oxford, because the two establishments resemble each other. So, why is this important? Because the research shows that role models are extremely important, okay? And role models, we've got two types. We've got real and direct types. They're the ones that we think about typically. Parents, mentors, teachers, close friends. There are direct or real role models. And then we've got these fictional or symbolic ones that we don't necessarily know personally, but they inspire us nonetheless. And fictional role models are extremely important. Role models in general help us envisage who we can be in the future. They help us define who we can be. They motivate us, they inspire us. And fictional role models inspire us too. And they are particularly important for women. Why? Well, let's look at some facts. Because for women in business, well, today, only 1 in 3 entrepreneurs in France is a woman. French women entrepreneurs earn 31% less than their male counterparts. And in the management sphere, only 36% of executives in France are women. So fictional role models are important to us because direct role models are few and far between, because similarity is extremely important when I want to identify with a role model. In my case with Rita, not only was she a woman, she was also from a working class background. She was going to study in an environment that was completely different to anything she had ever known before. So fictional role models are extremely important for all of us, important for women. But there's something else we need to think about when we think about role models. We also need to understand that we need more diversity in role models in general, because at the moment what we hear in the press all the time is we need more role models for women. Well, this is not just a numbers game. We don't just need more role models for women. If there's more women, if I'm ambitious, if I want to have a high growth business, if there's more women doing that, I will do that too. This is too simple, because how we identify with role models is not just based on one basis of similarity. It's not just based on gender. Yes, that enables things, but it's also based on race, ethnicity, age, marital status, parental status. It's based on all these different aspects. And so we need to open up the amount and the diversity of role models that are out there. We also need, when we think about role models, we also need to think about not just about the number of them and the variety of them, but we also need to think about the existing role models that are there. What is the message they are sending? Is it the woman entrepreneur who says, this is brilliant, I can do this, because at the same time I can look after work and home and the kids? Because if we do that, then we're just actually reproducing the idea that it's still my responsibility to look after home and the kids. We need to have people who are showing a diverse way of doing business and who define success in different ways. I would argue that we also need to have both men and women role models who show that there's different ways of achieving success, there's different ways of doing business. And one aspect that I would like to talk about is the notion of showing emotion in business, and emotion in work, and emotion in general when we want to succeed at something. Because typically, l'idée reçue, or the conceived idea that we have, or that we traditionally had, was that there is no place for emotion in the workplace. It's unprofessional, it's better to be neutral, it's better to rise above using emotion in the workplace. This is not the right place for it. It's unproductive, it's inefficient, it's not good. Showing emotion is not a good thing. And not surprisingly, showing emotion, is that more a masculine thing or a feminine thing? It's more a feminine thing, right? And this is not something that traditionally was valued in business. We should not show emotion. Well, recent research has actually shown that in actual fact, we need to let emotion in. And we need to demonstrate and use these emotions in work because they can have a positive impact. What emotion can do in the workplace is it can actually help convince people, it can help get people moving with you. We can get people behind you. Emotion can help you connect with people. It can help you convince people. It can help you negotiate better. Entrepreneurs have been proven that they actually obtain more funding from investors when they show their emotion, when they show their enthusiasm, their excitement. People get more commitment out of their employees when they show how passionate they are about developing and inventing. Customer satisfaction is higher when people are more emotional and passionate about what they do. So there's a place for emotion in business, and there's a place for role models who demonstrate that. Now, back to my confession. So, I've said that role models are important, and I've also said that I'm really passionate about what I do, but that I don't tell people the full story of what I do. I don't tell people I'm a researcher, I'm a gender researcher. Why not? Why don't I tell people? Well, look at me. When I talk about it, I get excited. When I talk about it, I get emotional. And it's not good to get emotional in business, right? We're wrong. Because when I get emotional and when I talk about this, that's when people listen, that's when people are engaged. And emotion can be a good thing. So I realised, what kind of role model am I? What kind of role model am I? If I'm keeping a lid on this, if I'm letting all this passion that I feel about what I do not escape, if I'm trying to harness it and keep it in, I'm not being a good role model. So from today, I want to be somebody's Rita. I want to be somebody's fictitious role model. And I'm going to show how using emotion can be a good thing, and it can help you define your professional identity, and it does not need to compromise your personal success. Thank you.